Amongst the many women who were influential in the late colonial period, we are now going to cite two of these, Esther Bigge and Burdekin. Both women broke new ground in their various fields. It's Michael Bigge, Australian historical fiction writer, with you again, and I'm a supporter of those women who smashed the stereotypical model of what they were supposed to be in the late colonial period. I'm all for that, and I'm very excited when I come across women like this. There is a recent publication by Catherine Bishop called Minding Your Own Business, Colonial Businesswomen in Sydney that I commend to you. In fact, we have seen that in the towns, especially Sydney, there was a high degree of bankruptcy in this period. There were also those businesses which were struggling, and it seems that the women in those families who were involved often took the reins and fought hard to keep the cash flowing in. Now, it put paid to the often stated truism that it was the man who had the brains and the wherewithal and the determination, when in fact, you see, many of these men were purely fronts, and the real power and responsibility and acumen was undertaken by their wives and partners. Good stuff. Now let's deal firstly with Esther Bigge. Now, from some references it says that Mrs. Bigge was the wife of Governor Macquarie's coachman. Very important job in those times. This probably makes sense as the governor's domain borders on what we now call Farm Cove, on which, on its western shore, holds the Boy Charlton swimming pool, which was refurbished in the early 2000s. Now, back then, however, there was a swimming pool or netted off area originally on the sandy beach, which the Marines and the military used from the early days of the settlement. It was a logical place for a more formal swimming pool to be developed. According to one source, Wikipedia, and there are others, the first swimming facility planned for the area was a floating public baths called Robinson's Hot and Cold Baths. Good name. Thomas Robinson was granted a lease for the area in December 1829, but construction of the baths took another 10 years to complete. Very similar to a lot of New South Wales projects, I'm sorry to say, old ones and current ones. Beating Robinson to the jump was Mrs. Bigge. Now, she opened the first ladies' baths, which included a bathing machine, in 1833 on a small flat inlet near the northwestern corner of Cowper Wharf. The baths went out of operation in the late 1840s. Now, it has to be remembered that bathing for females was very unusual and socially frowned on in the 19th century. It wasn't until late in that century where organised bathing could occur. So for a woman to champion swimming for women in the domain was bold and newsworthy in the extreme. Now to the other lady, Burdekin. We have often heard, Australians have heard about the Burdekin Dam in Queensland, and it was the efforts on behalf of Burdekin who opened up this area for development. Thomas Burdekin was an ironmonger who came to Sydney and set up shop, leveraging off his English family's expertise in that field. When he passed away in 1844, his wife Mary Ann became the matriarch of the family. She took on the role. Good luck to her. She contributed towards the costs of exploration of northern Queensland by explorer Dr. Ludwig Leichhardt, which led to the discovery of the major river he named as the Burdekin River, in honour of Thomas and Mary. This discovery in turn led to a whole area in Queensland known as Burdekin Shire, and much later to the Burdekin Dam and associated irrigation schemes in that area. So two of many famous women who made their marks on the late colonial period. It's Michael Bigge signing off, but we'll be back with further fascinating videos in the not too foreseeable future. Thank you.